Hello YouTube, welcome to RVDaydream. We've got the Jasion step through, the roamer step through. They also make one that's a high step. We're going to get this out of the box, see what it's going to take to be put together, and I think this is going to be a nice one.
What have you been up to?
I've been riding on a daydream.
This is the way FedEx delivered it to us. It's about a 65-pound box. The bike's about 50 of those pounds, so be a little cautious. It might be a little heavy, but let's do it. Once you have the box open, make sure that you remove this box. So you see your pedals here marked right and left. Make sure you get that right. They do turn and twist into the crank arm according to what side they are, and it's indicated by the arrows. This is what they call the skewer, and this is what holds the front tire and wheel assembly onto the forks of the bike. Make sure that it's fully open when you go to install it, and pay particular attention to these tabs and the direction that these cone springs are pointed. The small side should be in. We'll talk about that when we're putting the front tire on. Of course, you get an assortment of wrenches here. So there's a couple of wrenches that are open-end wrenches. Looks like they are sizes 8, 10, 13, and 15. You have a cap here, a rubber cap. That's for, I'm sure, the stem for the steering. And then you have these Allen wrenches, these large Allen wrenches. Then you have a couple of wire ties. That's for keeping things a little bit tidy as far as wire management. And then finally, the last thing in the box is going to be the charger. And this is a 54.6 volt 2 amp charger. Pretty standard charger. One of the things to know whenever you're going to charge your battery, always plug this end, the small end, into the battery first before you plug the charger into the wall. Now you can do this a couple different ways. You can have somebody help you hold the box while you lift the bike out. You could also sort of disassemble the packaging out of here and pull components out as needed, and then pull the rest of it out. Or you can carefully cut the sides of the boxes, or box in this case, without cutting into anything important, and allow the box to unfold while you hold the bike, and then you can get a better idea of what you need to remove at that point. The way I do it is I usually start pulling out the packaging to get a good look at what's in here. Make sure you recycle any of the plastics and the foam that is used. So after opening the box and pulling the loose packing off of the top of the bike, the best idea, I believe at this point in time, is to cut the box open. So the first thing I want to do is, again, remove all of the wire ties and packaging that's included. Now you want to make sure that you don't damage anything that is a component that might be taped up along with your packaging. So that's why I'm using the side cutters, because they're relatively blunt. Now if you want, you can cut the back side of the box also, or push the box over and spread out the panels so that you could create yourself a clean work environment using the inside of the box. Once you remove the wire ties from the frame, it'll allow the tire and the fender to come out together. We want to make sure that we remove all of the packaging and free the bike up so we can prepare it for assembly. Now that we have the components removed from the packaging, you can see, to reiterate, this is what comes in the charger box. The front fender, you have your rear rack, and then you have your seat. Important kickstand, we're going to probably put that on right away, and I'll tell you why. And then you have your protector for your wheel. This will come off before you try to assemble. This is just to protect everything whenever it's being shipped. So let's take a little bit closer look at the bike. First, before I go over there, I'm going to find out which wrench fits, there we go, the kickstand, And this is why this should be one of the first things that you install. But this is what the bike looks like now. These black pieces that you see on the cardboard, you can ignore those. All that is just package protection that was put on. The reason that you're going to put on the kickstand first is because when you put on your front fender and your front tire, once it's on, you need the bike to be able to stand by itself. Right now, the only thing holding it is the packaging that is for the forks and the packaging that's for the rear tire. What you're wanting to do is remove the 2 bolts that are pre-installed on the kickstand, and then we're just going to position it on either side of this bracket and reinstall the screws as they were before, but now with the bracket in between. And then use the wrench to snug it all up. Once that is snugged up, then you can put your kickstand down and it will keep the bike a little bit more steady. Before we put the wheel, tire, fender, and headlight assembly all on the forks, we want to get the handlebars up and off the ground so that we're not moving them around and scuffing anything. You have to kind of pay close attention to the orientation of the forks and them being straight and perpendicular to the line of the bike from front to rear. Now the wrench that I'm using is the same one that I used for the kickstand. And you can see how long this bolt actually is. It's got to go into the forks quite a ways. So there you go. This piece will be discarded. You don't need this piece. And it actually says right on there, the aluminum mold ring only used for packaging protection, take it off. You can also remove this piece as this isn't used in this application. So all you'll have is this bolt here, lifting the handlebars, running the wires on the left side. You'll place the handlebars back down. You'll slightly orientate them the way that they should be, and you'll place the bolt back in and engage the forks where we just removed it from. Now, for some reason you lifted this or you moved it, make sure that this is fully seated in the tube before you start tightening the bolt on the top of the handlebars. Again, we're not going to necessarily fully tighten them because we're wanting to make sure everything is in alignment. And once it is in alignment, you're going to tighten that bolt up on top, and then again, double checking just in case it moved that everything is still in alignment. You'll tighten with yet a smaller Allen wrench the pinch or cinch bolts that face opposite directions on the gooseneck collar to grab the fork top once it comes through that head tube. Now you don't want to have to go crazy tight on this at this point. You just want to get it kind of close. That way, once everything's together, if you're slightly off, the adjustment can be made relatively easy. Now the handlebars you can see move around pretty easily. So does the display. Those can be tightened at a later time. However, you do want it slightly snug so that you can get an idea of what the orientation is going to be. But more importantly, you might need it to help lift and hold the bicycle up whenever you're putting your wheel and tire assembly on there. Whenever you're tightening this, you want to make sure that no one bolt gets tightened more than the rest. There should be a gap, equal gap all the way around on all of these bolts and the clamp that holds the handlebars to the gooseneck. So to prepare for the fender, the light to be assembled first, you're going to find or locate these lower fender mount bolts here. And it's the same wrench that we used for the handlebars and the kickstand. And you're going to remove those bolts fully and also remove this bolt up here to allow for the fender to go up and through and be mounted. However, whenever you're mounting the light, it uses this same bolt. So you have to be cautious because you have to line all of this up at the same time before you tighten it on this upper. So what I like to do is to start the lower ones leave them loose, and then go to the upper one. At that point, you know that everything's lined up, and you can adjust then this fender either higher or lower so that it's not so close to the tire. Just so you know what this looks like, the fender will go on with its smooth tab first, and then the light, and then the bolt will go through both of those. Now, before we put the wheel and tire assembly on, you need to remove the packaging bolt. So we're going to use the 15mm wrench that they gave us to loosen the nuts that hold the bolt on. We have to give it some slack here, and then whenever we loosen the outer ones with that same wrench, everything will come off a little bit easier. And this helps if you have two people, but it can be done with one, just like I'm showing you there. Now we're ready for the wheel and tire assembly. So again, this is the skewer that I was talking about earlier. And we need to check the orientation of these tabs to make sure they engage the holes that are on the forks, but also that these springs are on either side. So the nice thing about this is it's a quick release. On the brake side of the wheel, I want you to start the skewer, but we're going to loosen this nut by hand. You should be able to do all the tightening that's necessary on this front axle by hand. There's no need for wrenches on this. We're going to put the skewer in the hole. And then the assembly again, we're going to push the skewer slightly, the spring, the washer, and then the nut. And don't go very tight, just a couple of turns. That'll make it a little bit easier to get on the bike. It's going to be hard to show on camera, but at this point in time, we're going to take this disc brake and we're going to insert it inside of the brake caliper at the same time as we line up the axle with the slots and the forks. So let's go ahead and show you what that looks like. Again, two people, it's a little bit easier, but it can be done with one. And the orientation of this washer needs to be up as there's a hole that it engages. Same with the other side. What I'm doing is I'm tightening the nut on the non-brake side. And once we get past a certain point, we'll just fold this over and it will actually be all that's needed to secure the front tire on your bike, which is really nice if you're transporting and you need to take the tire off, because it's quick to remove, quick to put on. And that seems about right. Yeah, there we go. And that's it, it is locked on. Now it's time to go on and mount the rack. The bolts that are currently in the bike need to be removed, as they're going to be used to secure the rack to the bike. Just find the correct Allen wrench they supply and make sure that you take them completely off and then reinstall them with the rack. Don't completely tighten any one bolt until you have all of them started, and then you can snug them up at that point. So once this is on, go ahead and give it kind of a snug, tight fit. Don't over tighten. You don't want to strip these out. They're not very big. So what we're going to do, go ahead and put the seat on, and that way we can adjust the handlebars and the angles of the handlebars before we do the final tighten up there, and we can get the correct angle of the handlebars. The seat adjustment is just like the front tires as far as the way that it tightens. You should not need any tools to do so. Just go ahead and tighten it up with that nut as much as you can. And then there's a flip release. That should hold that steady. Now you can adjust the angle of the horn of the seat by just loosening again with the given wrenches, and then just position it the way you want and then tighten it back up again. if you want this more nose down or nose up. That's a rider preference. All right, so now that we have everything snugged up and aligned, we need to go ahead and finish out the install of the tail light. Now the tail light, you're just going to use a 8mm, which again they supply, and then you can see the tab that it goes onto. Just don't over tighten it. It's all about just getting it snug enough, not over tightening. Last thing you want to do is break one of these things. So when you want to mount it, you want to mount it that the wire is actually on the bottom, because they have turn signals built into this model, and that way the turn signal will actually indicate the correct way for you. If you do it the other way, obviously it would be the wrong way. So the wire is going to be at the bottom of the lens once it's mounted. Again, we're going to tighten that up just snug. Gonna pull that off, but not overly tight. And then of course, with all the wires that they gave us, that extra wire to get this taillight in a good position, you're going to use the wire ties they included and secure it to the frame, and this part will be complete. Got a little bit more to do and we'll be ready to go. Now we're moving towards the pedals, and just like I said, there's a left and a right. We're going to start with the right, and the right will actually pivot forward, because the way these work is as you're pedaling, if anything, they will tighten, they won't loosen. It's kind of a safety thing. They've been doing that on bikes for years, and of course the 15mm wrench that they supplied will allow this to be tight. So you can see this tightens in a traditional manner. Boom. And then the other side actually goes in the same manner, if you want to look at that, and that's forward. So we'll go ahead and pivot this around. And in this case, it's the only few cases that lefty don't mean loosey, it actually means tighten. So again, we'll get the wrench in there and tighten it up. Again, once all the handlebars are adjusted and everything is in alignment, the handlebars are straight with the front tire and the handlebars are straight with the bike, you can then tighten everything up here, including the display and the handlebars from the clamp. But then this is a finish plug, and basically finishes off the look by covering up that hole that the bolt went into. Now at this point in time, what you want to do is check your air pressure in your tires, make sure that's correct, charge your battery to its fullest, which you can charge either on or off the bike, and make sure that you have all the controls tight, not loose, and that your brakes work, and that the display comes on, your lights come on, your turn signals work, and your brake lights work, and you're ready to go. So I hope you enjoy this video. I hope this helped you out with your installation, your unboxing, your assembly of the Jasion Roamer step through. As always, guys, we hope to see you out there. Bye.